Today I'm going for a first run in the Mizuno Wave Rider 24. 5.34 miles, 8 minutes, 51 seconds per hour, 140 beats per minute today. Going for a very chilly run, even though it's still only late October. Pretty cold out there for my first run in the Mizuno Wave Rider 24. Now, before I go over my thoughts on this shoe after just the first run, I do want to go over some disclosures. This is a pair of shoes that was sent to me for the purpose of review by Mizuno. However, they're not paying me to make this video or to use this shoe, and they're not going to get a chance to preview any of my footage or my thoughts before you guys get a chance to see this video on YouTube. Now, with the disclosures out of the way, let's talk about the Mizuno Wave Rider 24. Now, what we have here is a 20 millimeter stack height shoe in the forefoot with a 12 millimeter drop. And this year, I do think it's coming in a bit lighter at 9.9 ounces for my size 9. So puts it on a little bit of the heavier side for a daily trainer, which is where I would put this shoe. Now, the real story about this shoe for this year, for their 24th edition of the Wave Rider, is the inclusion of Mizuno Enerzy, that's E-N-E-R-Z-Y, foam in the midsole. And some of you guys might have seen that super crazy, like bubbly shoe that's on sale for $300 from Mizuno. That same foam that's supposed to be super light, super bouncy is in the Wave Rider. And it's this area that's basically below the wave plate. What this wave plate is, it's a piece of plastic that is designed to do two things. It's kind of like a wave, right? And so when you step on it, you land on it, it absorbs impact, but also because it's stiff and rigid, it bounces back. So kind of like a carbon fiber plate, or at least a mini one in the heel area of the foot. It's a signature feature of the Wave Rider. In the midfoot of this shoe, however, is a bunch of euphoric midsole foam, which is what has typically been in the Wave Rider. Now, originally, I thought that this shoe for the Wave Rider 24 was going to be a big departure from the 23 because I thought it was going to have all full midsole of that Mizuno Enerzy foam, and I was really excited about that because Mizuno tells us it's 15% lighter and 17% more rebound than traditional foams that it's been using. But it's only in this area in the heel underneath the wave plate. And so what this ends up being is kind of, this shoe is a good news, bad news kind of shoe. The good news is that the Mizuno Enerzy is nice. I do really like it. But the bad news is there's still a lot of the euphoric foam. So basically most of this midsole foam is still the same midsole foam that the Wave Rider had before. So that's the bad news. But the good news is if you're one of the Wave Rider faithful, you're going to be really happy. Don't worry, they didn't ruin your shoe. I feel like having run in the Wave Rider 23 earlier this year and now trying this new Wave Rider 24, I feel like this is everything that the Wave Rider faithful will love, but with some improvements. I do feel like it's lighter because of that Enerzy foam that's in there. I do feel like the shoe also is a bit more streamlined. There's a little bit less padding in the heel cup, which I think makes sense for a daily trainer. There's not that much padding in the tongue. The engineered mesh is nice and breathable, very flexible. The fit is ample across the toe box. It feels really nice for a daily trainer. And there's even still a bunch of outsole tread on this. The rubber is still really thick, which is going to be really good for those of you who really want to make sure you're getting a lot of longevity and durability out of your shoes. And on the other hand, though, in an effort to keep this shoe lighter, I do think they used the rubber just a little bit more sparingly or less prodigiously. There's less rubber on the outsole, and that also helps it stay light. But where there is rubber, there's still a bunch of thickness. It's a lot like the Wave Rider 23, but with some substantial improvements. On the other hand, the downside of it being still so close to the Wave Rider 23 is that the Wave Rider 23 wasn't one of my favorite shoes of the year. There's just some parts of it that are disagreeing with like the way that I run or my style of running and or my gait. Part of it is that 12 millimeter heel drop. I just think it's really, really tall. Normally heel drops don't bother me. Anything from 10 to 0, I'm good with. But like once you get to 12, it's a little bit extra, and I really start to notice the high heel drop there, and it causes some issues for me. One of the things is that I feel like this shoe then, because of such a high heel drop, really wants me to heel toe run, and that's not really the way that I typically run. I mean, sometimes on slower days or when I'm tired and fatigued, sure, I'm not saying that I never heel strike, but I don't use that as like my primary or my main goal type of foot strike. I try not to think about foot strike too much, but this shoe makes me think about it a lot. And it always makes me think that I'm doing something wrong because it wants me to be doing something else with my foot. The sensation, I think the best way that I can explain it is that when my foot hits the ground, I feel like I'm hitting it like twice. Instead of like a fluid, smooth motion, I feel like the shoe like hits. I feel like there's like a double impact in there somewhere. Or maybe because there is such a high heel drop, I feel like it's putting extra pressure on the midfoot to forefoot area. And so I feel like I'm not heel striking in this shoe. I feel like I'm almost like midfoot breaking, as if like I'm like digging or jabbing the ground with my midfoot. And I think part of that is either from like there's a lack of smoothness from heel to toe for me, at least in the way that my foot strikes the ground, or because the heel drop is so high, I just feel like it's making me jab the ground kind of in this way. So there's just something that's a little bit off for me in this shoe. I think if you've loved the Wave Rider 23, then you're gonna love the Wave Rider 24. But if you had that issue with the Wave Rider 23, I think you're still gonna experience it here as well. And so what that manifested to me today was about by the 3 mile mark, I felt a pain in the pads of my right foot. And that's something that I also got every time I ran in the Wave Rider 23. I just think it's that high heel drop that's making me like jab my feet kind of a little bit into the ground. What I really wish the shoe would have been was kind of what I was expecting or hoping it would have been, which was a full midsole full of the Mizuno Enerzy foam in there. I'm not sure what that would have done to price, or if they would have been able to deliver like that quantity of this foam. Again, I'm not sure or that familiar with their production process and how available that material is for them to use. But I would have loved to have seen a shoe that was like that had all that foam in there in a daily trainer package from them. And if they would have trimmed down like the outsole rubber, you know, maybe that would have also helped a lot in terms of helping it to feel like a little bit more fluid of a shoe. Because ultimately, I love the idea of putting in some sort of wave plate or plate, something that has a little bit of shock absorption plus resilience to it, and a nice and springy and lightweight foam put together. Like, I think that those are really two great combinations. We see it in marathon super shoes all the time with like the super squishy foams with carbon fiber plates. I'd love to see like a daily trainer version of that. As long as it was changing foams and kind of breaking the mold from some of its legacy to begin with, I was hoping that that break from the legacy would have been a little bit more bold. But instead, we've got like a mild update. I was really hoping that I would get a little bit more difference from the 23, because otherwise I think that like I like the styling of it. It looks like a daily trainer. It's not the craziest looking shoe there, but they've done some changes to the design that I think are worth noticing and like lauding. I do like the way that they've kind of sculpted more of the foam in the back here, and they've put the Mizuno logo to its side, which I think looks really good. They put it on the heel and once on the tongue too. I like that sideways change. I just wish like some of the ride were a little bit more updated as well. So I think part of my like disappointment in the shoe, I mean, disappointment's a strong word. Part of what I'm feeling about this shoe, it comes from my expectations, which were out of line with what they were even promising to deliver to begin with. So it's a little bit unfair that I'm wanting it to be something else that it was never intended to be. But I do just wish that, because I didn't love the Wave Rider 23, I wish that it would have made a bigger departure from the Wave Rider 23. But I also understand Mizuno's position where they have a shoe that's been selling for 23 years. You can't just like drop the entire legacy of that shoe. You got to still slowly bring the faithful along with you as you begin to update. It's about iteration, not revolution. I get that. So hopefully this is one of many changes that the Wave Rider franchise can undergo over the next couple of years. I think this is a really promising first step. So those are my thoughts so far, just after the one run in the Mizuno Wave Rider 24. I'll keep running in it to see if my thoughts change in it over time. Hit the subscribe button to see what happens next. If you have any questions about the Mizuno Wave Rider 24, feel free to put them down in the comments down below, or better yet, I do a live stream every day, 3 p.m. Central Time on YouTube. You can always feel free to ask me a question there. That's all I have for today, everybody. Thanks so much for making it all the way to the end of the video. Hopefully you guys are staying safe out there on your runs, and I'll see you in the next one.
Yo, what's going on?